We are often troubled not by events themselves, but by how we interpret them. A simple phrase, "just a friend," can spark doubt, stir emotions, and lead us down a path of unnecessary suffering. But why? Is it because we seek certainty in an uncertain world? Is it because we wish to control what is beyond us? Or is it because we allow emotions to govern reason? Perception is the lens through which we view the world, but that lens is often distorted by emotion, assumption, and desire. We hear words, we see actions, and immediately we begin to craft a narrative. She calls him just a friend, but is he? The mind seizes on this question and fills in the blanks, often not with truth, but with fear, insecurity, or expectation. But a Stoic does not allow perception to dictate reality. Instead, he seeks to discipline the mind so that it perceives only what is, and not what emotions project onto it. Consider this. When you look at the sky and see dark clouds gathering, do you assume the worst storm in history is coming? No, you simply acknowledge that clouds have formed. You do not panic, you do not despair, you prepare, or you observe, and you let nature take its course. Yet in life, when faced with uncertainty in human relationships, we often abandon reason and allow our perceptions, warped by our own desires, to dictate our emotions. We do not simply see what is happening, we create a story around it, and that story, if left unchecked, can control us. Words are powerful, but only if we allow them to be. When someone says, "just a friend," what do those words truly mean? They are, at their core, nothing more than vibrations in the air, sounds formed by another person's breath. Yet we take them, attach meaning, and let them shape our reality. The question we must ask ourselves is this: are we seeing things as they truly are, or as we wish them to be? Are we interpreting words and actions objectively, or are we filtering them through the lens of insecurity and expectation? The human mind is prone to error, and one of its greatest errors is assuming that perception equals truth. We mistake our interpretations for facts, our emotions for evidence. If we feel uneasy, we assume there is reason for unease. If we feel doubt, we assume something is amiss. But Stoicism teaches us that emotions are merely reactions. They are not proof of reality. Just as a ripple in a pond does not mean there is something lurking beneath the surface, a thought in our mind does not make it true. To free ourselves from unnecessary suffering, we must separate perception from reality. This means questioning our own assumptions. If a person says one thing, why do we assume they mean another? If they act in a certain way, why do we insist on assigning hidden motives? A disciplined mind does not create unnecessary stories. It observes, it understands, and it lets go of what is beyond control. Imagine watching two people converse. You do not know their history, their emotions, or their intention. To you, they are simply speaking. Yet if you were emotionally invested in one of them, suddenly, the same scene takes on meaning. You begin to dissect every word, every glance, every pause. You look for signs, for proof of something unspoken. But this is not clarity, it is illusion. And illusion is the source of unnecessary pain. A wise person does not fear what is unknown. He does not assume betrayal where there is no evidence. He does not let his peace be disturbed by shadows of his own making. He understands that what is, is. If something is meant to change, it will. If it is not, it remains. There is no need to grasp, no need to demand, no need to let the mind create suffering where none exists. So, when faced with the question, she calls him just a friend, but is he? Do not look outward for the answer, look inward. Ask yourself why this question troubles you. Ask yourself what fear it awakens, what insecurity it stirs. And then remind yourself, perception is not reality, a thought is not truth, a feeling is not evidence. Master yourself, and you will master the world around you. There is a fundamental truth that few fully accept. We do not control the thoughts, actions, or words of others. We may wish to, we may try to, But in the end, people will do as they will, and the only thing within our power is how we respond. The moment we begin to understand this, we free ourselves from a great deal of unnecessary suffering. So much of human frustration stems from the illusion of control. We think that if we act a certain way, others will reciprocate. We believe that if we are good, kind, or patient, we will receive the same in return. But life does not follow such predictable equations. People act according to their own nature, shaped by their own thoughts and experiences, not according to what we expect or desire. To resist this truth is to invite frustration. To accept it is to find peace. Consider the changing seasons. We do not command the sun to rise, nor do we order the rain to fall. The world moves according to its own rhythm, indifferent to our wishes. Yet many approach relationships with the opposite mindset, believing that if they try hard enough, they can control the outcome. They obsess over words, hoping to change their meaning. They analyze actions, searching for signs they wish to see. But none of this changes what is. None of this gives them true power. True power comes from mastering what is within, not from attempting to control what is without. If another person speaks or acts in a way that unsettles you, the question is not, how can I make them act differently? The question is, why does this unsettle me? The mind must turn inward, for that is where the battle is fought. If a word spoken by another can shake your peace, then it is not they who have power over you, but you who have failed to strengthen your own mind. The Stoics believed that freedom lies in detachment from external control. This does not mean apathy, nor does it mean indifference to others. It means understanding that while we may care for people, their choices are their own. If a person claims one thing but we suspect another, that is their burden to carry, not ours. If they say just a friend and doubt lingers in our mind, it is not they who must prove anything to us. It is we who must master our thoughts, discipline our emotions, and accept that the world moves as it will. There is great peace in this realization. Imagine carrying a heavy chain, one that binds you to expectation, to worry, to the endless need for reassurance. Now imagine dropping it. Feel the weight lifted. This is what happens when you stop trying to control what is outside of you. No longer do you need to search for hidden meanings, to demand answers, to struggle against the natural course of events. You simply exist, unshaken, steady in your own understanding. This is not an easy path, but it is the only one that leads to true inner peace. The alternative is a life spent in unnecessary suffering, chasing answers, fearing the unknown, feeling betrayed by expectations that were never promised. But suffering is not caused by what others do. It is caused by how we react, and reactions are within our control. So, if doubt arises, do not ask how you can change the situation. Ask how you can change yourself. Do not seek to control others, seek to master your own mind. In doing so, you will find that nothing can disturb your peace unless you allow it to. And that is true power. Emotions are natural, but they are not always rational. They rise like waves in the ocean, often unpredictable, sometimes overwhelming. The mistake many make is believing that because they feel something it must be true, or that emotions should dictate their actions. A Stoic, however, understands that emotions are merely sensations, passing, fleeting, and ultimately under the control of the disciplined mind. To master oneself is to master these emotions, not by suppressing them, but by understanding them, questioning them, and refusing to be ruled by them. Consider how often people allow emotions to cloud their judgment. A word, a glance, an unanswered question, these small things can stir great storms in the untrained mind. Someone says, just a friend, yet the heart does not believe it. But why? Because emotions, when left unchecked, do not seek truth. They seek validation for what they already assume. They latch onto doubt, feed on insecurity, and grow stronger with each moment of indulgence. If one does not take control, emotions become the master, and reason becomes the servant. There is a way to break free from this cycle. The first step is awareness. When a feeling arises, whether it be jealousy, insecurity, or fear, it must be observed, not obeyed. Instead of reacting impulsively, one must step back and ask, what is this feeling? Why has it arisen? Is it based on evidence, or is it a product of my own assumptions? By doing this, one creates distance between emotion and action. This distance is where wisdom resides. A common mistake is believing that controlling emotions means feeling nothing at all. But this is not Stoicism. Stoicism does not demand that one become unfeeling, only that one does not become a slave to feelings. Emotions will always come and go, but they should not dictate decisions, nor should they be allowed to disrupt inner peace. When an emotion arises, it is not a command, it is simply a signal. It can be acknowledged and understood without being obeyed. Imagine standing in front of a fire. If one steps too close, they are burned. If one ignores it entirely, they may freeze. The wise approach is to acknowledge the fire, respect its presence, but not allow it to control movement. So too must one treat emotions, not as enemies, not as masters, but as forces that can be observed and managed with discipline. The second step is recognizing what is within control. One cannot control what another says or does, but one can control how they interpret it. If a person insists on questioning words, on dissecting actions, on searching for hidden meanings, they are choosing suffering. But suffering is unnecessary, for interpretation is a choice. If one simply accepts what is said and refuses to create unnecessary narratives, there is no conflict, no distress. What is not known is not yet a problem, and what is not within control is not worth suffering over. Strength does not come from demanding reassurance or seeking validation from others. It comes from knowing that nothing outside the self has power over the self. If one relies on others to confirm their worth or to provide constant certainty, they will always be at the mercy of the external world. But if one cultivates inner strength, nothing can shake them. Not words, not actions, not even the unknown. The final step is letting go of attachment to outcomes. Fear arises when one clings too tightly to expectations. If one believes that things must be a certain way, they create suffering when reality does not conform. But if one embraces uncertainty, they are free. They do not demand, they do not assume, they simply exist in the present, unburdened by the need to control the future. This is the path to emotional discipline. To feel, but not be ruled by feelings. To observe, but not react impulsively. To accept, but not attach. In doing so, one discovers an unshakable peace, the kind that no word, no action, and no uncertainty can ever disturb. Friendship is one of the most misunderstood relationships in human life. People often view it through the lens of their own desires, expectations, and fears, rather than seeing it for what it truly is. A genuine friendship is not built on hidden motives, unspoken agreements, or unfulfilled wishes. It is not a disguise for something else, nor is it a means to an end. And yet, many find themselves questioning whether a friendship is truly just that, not because of what is happening in reality, but because of what their mind wants to believe. This misunderstanding arises from attachment and expectation. People often enter friendships with silent hopes, believing that if they invest enough time, effort, and care, it will evolve into something greater. But this is not true friendship. This is a transaction, an unspoken contract where one gives not for the sake of giving, but for the hope of receiving. And when those expectations are not met, disappointment follows, not because the other person has done anything wrong, but because the expectations were never real to begin with. A true friendship is one that exists without demand. It does not require validation, nor does it seek hidden meanings. It is based on mutual respect, on shared moments, and on a bond that is not tainted by longing for something more. If one begins to question whether a friendship is truly just a friendship, the real issue is not with the other person, but within. Why does this question arise? What is being sought? Is it clarity, or is it control over an uncertain situation? The Stoics understood that attachment is the root of suffering. When one becomes too attached to an idea of what something should be, they become blind to what it truly is. They begin to see not the present moment, but a future they hope for. And when reality does not align with that vision, they feel betrayed. But who has betrayed them? No one. They have betrayed themselves by refusing to accept what is. A friendship does not need to be anything more than what it is in order to be valuable. To demand more is to poison it with expectation. People often feel uneasy in friendships where emotions are unclear because they seek certainty in an uncertain world. But certainty is an illusion. No bond, no relationship, no word spoken today can guarantee the future. A friend today may be a stranger tomorrow. A connection that seems unshakable may fade with time. This is the nature of life. And yet, this is not something to fear. It is something to accept. The impermanence of human connection does not make it less valuable. It makes it more so. It is because it is fleeting that it must be cherished for what it is, not what one wishes it to become. The strongest friendships are those that are free from need. They are not based on hidden desires or secret hopes, but on genuine appreciation for another person as they are. When one no longer seeks to control, to define, or to question the nature of a bond, they are free to simply experience it. There is no pressure, no anxiety, no silent suffering. There is only the moment and the joy of having another person share it. If a person finds themselves questioning a friendship, wondering if it is something more, they must first ask themselves, why does this question matter so much? Is the friendship itself not enough? Is there an underlying fear that is driving this uncertainty? To a disciplined mind, the answer does not come from external validation, nor from searching for proof of something beyond what is already known. The answer comes from accepting what is in front of them without distortion. To free oneself from suffering in friendship is to detach from expectation. To accept what is given without longing for more, to appreciate the present without demanding a future. When one does this, they are no longer troubled by uncertainty, nor do they seek answers that were never needed. They simply exist in harmony with what is, and in that acceptance, they find true peace. Possessiveness is often mistaken for love, but in reality, it is a chain, one that binds both the person who holds it and the person it seeks to control. Many believe that to care for someone is to have a claim over them, to be entitled to their time, their choices, and their affections. But this belief is a source of suffering, not strength. True strength lies in letting go, in understanding that no one belongs to another, and that attachment rooted in possession is not love, but fear. The fear of loss is what fuels possessiveness. People want to hold on to what feels familiar, what brings them comfort, what reassures them. But what is truly theirs cannot be taken, and what is not theirs was never meant to be held. When one grasps too tightly, they do not protect, they suffocate. They create tension where there should be ease, demand where there should be freedom. And, in doing so, they do not strengthen their bond with another, they weaken it. There is an illusion in the mind that says, if I do not hold on to this person, they may drift away. But the truth is, if someone can be lost, they were never meant to stay. If a connection is genuine, it does not need to be clutched. It remains because it is valued, not because it is forced. The ocean does not chase the waves, nor does the tree beg the wind to stay. Nature moves as it will, and the wise person understands that people too will go where they choose. To accept this is not to be indifferent, it is to be at peace. Jealousy, insecurity, and fear of losing someone often come from a misunderstanding of what relationships truly are. A relationship is not a contract of ownership. It is a choice made in each moment by both people involved. The moment it becomes something one party feels obligated to maintain, rather than something they willingly nurture, it loses its essence. Freedom is at the heart of all meaningful connections. Without it, there is only obligation, and obligation breeds resentment. To overcome possessiveness, one must first recognize that it is not the other person who must change, it is oneself. If the mind is constantly worried about what another is doing, if it seeks control over their actions, if it fears their choices, then the problem does not lie with them, it lies within. The mind must be disciplined to accept what is and release the need to control. When one does this, they do not become weak or passive, they become powerful, but they are no longer at the mercy of fear, no longer troubled by uncertainty, no longer in a state of suffering over things they cannot control. The greatest relationships are those that exist without chains. To love someone, to care for them, does not mean to own them. It means to respect their freedom, to allow them to be who they are, and to trust that if they value the bond, they will remain by choice, not by force. This is true strength, not in grasping, but in letting go, not in demanding, but in trusting. Possession is a sign of weakness, of a fear-driven mind that cannot bear the thought of uncertainty. But certainty is an illusion. No one can guarantee what will happen tomorrow, what choices another person will make, or where life will take them. To find peace, one must embrace this uncertainty, not resist it. Only then can they truly enjoy what they have in the present, rather than constantly fearing its loss. When one releases the need to possess, they experience something rare: true freedom. They no longer feel anxious about whether someone will stay or go. They no longer need constant reassurance. They are at peace with whatever may come, knowing that their worth is not determined by another's presence, nor their happiness dependent on another's choices. This is where true power lies, not in trying to hold on to others, but in mastering oneself. Expectations are the root of much suffering. People build them in their minds, crafting scenarios of how things should be, how others should act, and what they deserve in return for their efforts. Yet reality is indifferent to these expectations. The world moves as it will, people make their own choices, and no amount of hoping or wishing can force life to conform to an imagined script. A person who clings too tightly to expectations will find themselves disappointed time and time again, not because the world has betrayed them, but because they have betrayed themselves by believing that things were ever under their control. The desire for certainty is what gives birth to expectations. The mind craves stability, clear answers, and predictable outcomes. But life does not offer such assurances. No relationship, no friendship, no human bond comes with a guarantee. People change, feelings shift, circumstances evolve. When one expects something to remain exactly as they desire, they set themselves up for suffering the moment reality does not align with their hopes. Instead of finding peace in what is, they focus on what they think should be, and in doing so, they create unnecessary turmoil. The mind must be trained to release these expectations. This does not mean one should not hope for good things or strive for meaningful connections. It simply means that one must not attach their peace of mind to a specific outcome. If a person says, "just a friend," then that is what they are. Any expectation beyond those words is a creation of the mind, a projection of desire, rather than an acceptance of truth. And if reality later proves otherwise, then one will face it when it comes. But to suffer over something uncertain, something unconfirmed, is to allow oneself to be ruled by illusion. The Stoics understood that disappointment comes not from what happens, but from how we perceive what happens. If one expects something and it does not occur, they feel hurt, let down, even betrayed. But if one expects nothing and instead accepts what is given freely, they remain at peace. This is not a pessimistic view, nor is it a passive one. It is a mindset of strength, of inner resilience. It means understanding that nothing is owed, that people will do as they will, and that true contentment comes not from getting what one wants, but from being unshaken by what one does not receive. When a person releases expectations, they begin to see things clearly. No longer are they blinded by what they wish to be true. They see people as they are, relationships as they exist in the present, and words as they are spoken, rather than as they wish them to mean. This clarity is liberating. It removes the weight of uncertainty, the constant questioning, the silent suffering of waiting for something that may never come. Instead of living in a state of hope and doubt, they live in a state of acceptance. Some may fear that letting go of expectations means settling for less, but this is not so. It simply means refusing to suffer over what is outside of one's control. It means understanding that people will act according to their own nature, and that forcing them to fit into a role they did not choose is both unfair and futile. It means finding joy in the present rather than longing for a future that may never arrive. The strongest person is not the one who demands the most from others, but the one who needs the least. They do not rely on external validation, nor do they require constant reassurance. They walk through life with the knowledge that they can handle whatever comes, because they have freed themselves from attachment to any single outcome. This is true freedom. To expect nothing, but to appreciate everything. To demand nothing, but to accept whatever is given. To love not with possession, but with presence. When one reaches this state, they no longer ask, "What does this mean?" or "What if things change?" They simply live, unburdened, knowing that whatever